Council for Green Revolution for giving this opportunity to share my thoughts. Actually, the topic was given as climate change and biodiversity. So they asked me to cover the impacts, adaptation, and mitigation options. And as I am agriculture scientist, I feel that I'll be more comfortable with the agriculture aspects, because other speakers may be dealing with the other aspects of the biodiversity. So before starting my presentation, I thought I can give some background of our information about the climate change. So initial slides of mine are dealing with the climate change. What is climate change and how it is going to impact the our agriculture. So climate change is not a new thing. Actually, the planet Earth has formed. The climate is changing, and it is a very continuous process. But why we have to think about now it is a threat or whatever the concern is, because the pace of the speed of the changes, that is not actually is not advisable, because the whatever the changes are happening over a period of time, the animals or plants or human beings are able to adapt. So thereby they were able to sustain. But now the pace of the change in the climatic conditions are so high that the adaptation is not happening. So this is the concern for the climate change studies. So as you know that it is very dynamic, climate is very dynamic, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere. There is always exchange of the things between these spheres. So when there is a balance among these cycles, there is no problem. But when there is a drift or shift in this, then it will affect the atmosphere. Like the conditions where we are living, or the crops we are growing, or the animals where they are sustained. So when the climate change, the buzzword is the climate change, then the next word comes as global warming. So now we are saying that Earth is atmospheric temperatures are increasing. So why it is increasing? Actually, because of the greenhouse effect. Because the greenhouse gases are there. So one should aware what are these greenhouse gases, and what is their role in maintaining the atmospheric temperature. So Earth temperature is maintained by this greenhouse gases, because the warmth what we are getting is from the sun, and the radiation is having the warm radiation, like infrared radiation, which is absorbed by the Earth, and some of it will be reflected back. But when it is reflecting back, these greenhouse gases will absorb, and this will be actually reason for the warmth on this planet Earth. Because when we are exploring other planets, this warmth is not there. So that warmth is at the peak of our actually tolerable limit. So when it goes beyond our tolerable limit, we cannot sustain, or any living organism. So in that way, so when you are saying that what happens if these changes happens, so changing the rain and snow pattern, this is actually happening. Changes in animal migration and lifestyles, higher temperatures and more heat waves, more droughts and wildfires. Actually, these are all in recent times we are all hearing about less snow and ice on the high altitudes, change in the plant life cycles. These are all projections. We can see that with these changes in the atmosphere. So what are the indicators? So glaciers are melting, snow cover is reducing. Actually, the tree lines are shifting, like the trees which are growing at low altitude, they are shifting to the higher altitudes, and spring is coming earlier. So all these things, sea level rise, sea ice melt is high, and temperature over oceans is increasing, and also of course our air temperatures and sea surface temperatures. These are all the indicators that where we can see that, feel that yes, there is a shift in the climatic. So the what are the potential climate change impacts? It is not only on human beings, but health, as not only for the human beings, and because the in recent times we could see that infectious diseases have spreading at faster rate, and also the air quality and the respiratory illness also. In agriculture, the crop yields are going to reduce with the high temperature and change in the rainfall pattern. Of course, forest, like water resources, coastal areas, because of sea level rise, and of course the today's topic is biodiversity, that is also going to disturb, because the sea level rise and precipitation is changing, and also the increase in the temperature. So before entering into the topic, I thought one should know that what are the major greenhouse gases. The 5 major: water vapor, which is not actually, it is like a relative humidity in the air. So this also is a major greenhouse gas. But carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, these are the 3 related with our activities, because of course ozone, now the ozone sunlight, because the hydrocarbons what we are emitting, that based on the sunlight reaction, the ozone will be formed. But these 3 are major for our concern, our human activities: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. So they have different global warming potential. Actually, carbon dioxide is, if you take it as a global warming potential, methane has 25 times higher, and nitrous oxide has 300 times, like 298 times higher global warming potential. This also we should understand, because when you are emitting carbon dioxide, what will be the impact on the climate, and what is the methane impact, and what is the nitrous oxide impact. So where from these greenhouse gases are coming? So the major contributor is energy sector. So when you are addressing the climate change, you should understand that where you can curb this like greenhouse gas emissions. Agriculture, even though the agriculture is basically with the plants, it is due to usage of the fertilizers, and also the inundation, like water stagnation in the anaerobic condition. Due to anaerobic conditions and the rice fields, it is also contributing to the global greenhouse gases. It is also significantly contributing. So so what is the dynamics of this carbon stocks? So when you see that the oceans are the major stock of the carbon, and atmosphere, land, plants, and also soils. There is another carbon which is in the fossil fuels. That is the actually ancient plants which have fixed the carbon. It has gone deeper into the soil, and it is now we are digging out for our petrol and other gas usages. So when you see that the dynamics of this change, so the land and surface exchange, and also the oceans, and this particularly the industrial emissions. So when we see the balance sheet, actually the major issue is with the fossil carbon, which is coal, gas, oil, and other things which are emitting, which there is no account for that. Now we need to actually either fix or reduce the these emissions, impact of these emissions. So based on the usage and the energy requirement, the projections were made. Actually, based on the 1990, what will be by 2100? Because any measures, any policy decisions has to be taken to implement and to see that it has to work out without actually disturbing our day-to-day comforts. So then the projection says that when you take the 1990 as the base year, it will be around 2.5 times more by the 2100 carbon dioxide. Similarly, the methane and nitrous oxide also, it will be going to be double. So then based on that, the projections are the 1.4 degrees to 5.8 degrees increase will be there. So whether are we ready to face this type of increase in the temperature? So then they have actually recorded that from 1860 to 2000, how the temperatures of the Earth atmosphere is going increasing. So then what the basic understanding is that the northern hemisphere, the increase in the temperature is higher in the northern hemisphere. So because the land masses are more and the human activities are more. So based on that, and of course, the amount of carbon dioxide, you might have heard about Mauna Loa Observatory. They actually they will give the everyday, monthly, yearly, seasonally the carbon dioxide concentration, and it is actually 414.72 ppm carbon dioxide concentration. It is a very high record, and also it reported that there is a 30% increase in the acidity of the oceans. So that actually, when you see the this particular graph, I have kept this for actually in when you see the carbon dioxide concentration, it has increased around 1990 by 350 ppm. This is the optimum, actually, the concentration Earth need to be have. But then it has gone even up to 400 ppm. That is the danger. And now we are recording more than 400 ppm. And by 2022, this is the 2022, it is around 415.73 ppm. It was reported, already reported. And one thing that the rate of increase, when you decadal increase, if you see that 60 to 70, it is 0.91. But by the 2000, it has gone up to 2.04 ppm per decade. In 2010, 11 to 20, it has even more, 2.43 ppm per year. So this is alarming. Actually, that's the where the IPCC and of course the COP meetings, they are actually working out how to reduce the emissions of this carbon dioxide. Actually, the same thing, they have reported, and this clearly shows that Earth is now, it is warming, and the warmth is actually, it is already crossed 1 degree increase by 2020. So sorry, this again. So coming to the biodiversity, actually, when the total biomass of so all life of the Earth is made up of 82% of the plants, 13% of bacteria, and 5% of other things. In that, only 0.01% of Earth total biomass is consisted by the humans. But they have destroyed 83% of the wildlife. When we consider that the living organisms are 86% of living organisms on the land, only 1% in the seas, and 13% in the deep surface bacteria. So what is actually why we are so concerned? Because our activities are knowingly, unknowingly, we are damaging the biodiversity. So there we are reasons, the human beings are the reason for 83% of loss of wild mammals, and 80% of marine mammals, and 50% of plants, and 15% of fishes. That was the report given. And actually, this shows that actually the plants are 7,500 more times more than human beings, 17 times of these crustaceans, and of course fish 12 times than our human beings. So in this, actually, we should understand that even though we are in minimal content of the total Earth atmosphere, we are actually causing a lot of impact on others' survival. So that is actually the concern, and we have to take care about how best we can actually minimize our activities to harm the other organisms. So some effects of global warming on agriculture will be the first thing is the loss of biodiversity in fragile environment, because every living organism needs some environment. If you are disturbing that environment, very few organisms will able to actually cope up with the changes and survive in a changed environments, but many organisms, they cannot survive if the temperature goes beyond 1 degree, or the humidity levels are the changes. So all these things will actually, the water requirement of that particular plant, or the temperature, even the flowering, or the requirement of, because of many other reasons, because they cannot survive. You cannot grow the apple in Hyderabad, because apple require a certain low temperatures which Hyderabad cannot have. So that shows a particular type of plants which cannot sustain. Like, I mean, maize. If you take the maize crop or rice crop, it is grown very widely across the globe, but not certain commodities where, like basmati rice. Even though if you grow the basmati rice in other locations, you may not able to get that flavor or the aroma. So such things are. So when they assess that, how if it increase in 1 degree or 2 degree, 3 degree, and the projection was even 4.8 degrees. So if that happens, 5 degree increase is there. So what happens to different systems like food availability, water availability, and also the ecosystem. So extinction is going to happen if it is more than 3 to 4 degrees. There is a danger that higher risk will be there if so many genera or the organisms are going to extinct. So it is not that many times we always see the climate change as a negative thing, but there are some positive impacts and there are some negative impacts. The negative impacts everybody is feeling, but there are certain positive impacts like increased productivity from enhanced CO2, because the climate change is one of the component of climate change is the carbon dioxide. So increased carbon dioxide, you all know that the plants will take up the carbon dioxide, and that increased carbon dioxide will increase the photosynthetic rate, thereby the growth. So there is an possibility of increased productivity, improved water use. And another one aspect of carbon dioxide is that it processes the stomata, thereby lower the transpirational water loss. So for example, rainfed agriculture, when there is a dry spell of 10 days or 12 days, so when you increase the carbon dioxide, the photosynthesis will not affect it, but it also reduces the transpirational water loss. So thereby it can sustain a longer period under the dry spell. And you all know that there are temperate regions and tropical. Ours is our country comes from the tropical, but temperate regions where in certain crops the temperature actually temperature is a limitation for their growth and this thing. So there we can expect that these warmer temperatures can increase the productivity. So higher the temperature, as they increase the temperature, the maturity will be faster. So the duration of the crop will decrease. And whereas in the high altitudes, there is a longer growing seasons also expected. And with the changed conditions, we can think of introducing the new crops, which is having some commercial or cash, like economical to the farmers, or new crops or new plants can be introduced. This is one way of looking at the climate change. Whereas the negative impacts is increase the drought and floods. Of course, you are all aware about all these things. Increase soil erosion, and of course there are new weeds we can expect, and diseases, and of course the efficacy. Even you need to use more fertilizers or more herbicides or more pesticides. That is also will be there. So climate change impacts by increasing the temperature, because all the organisms are not actually comfortable with the increased carbon dioxide, change in the precipitation and evaporation, because now you all know that this particular rainfall pattern is changing. So with high temperature, high evaporation is expected, and melting of glaciers. These glaciers are the actually source of water for many of our rivers, like Ganges, so Ganga river. So like that, if glaciers are melt, then the flow of the this rivers will be affected. Of course, sea level rise and inundation of the coastal areas and intrusion of saline water into the land, and thereby the salinity problem is going to be more. Of course, the impact will be changing the habitat, like shift in plant and animal. As I was saying, that change in the temperature and rainfall pattern, it will influence the habitat. So thereby there is a shift in the plants, and as I was mentioning, new plants may come here, and the already existing plants may shift to the higher altitudes or new niches. Rapid changes, and because as I was mentioning, it is the climate change is very rapid, so it is not matching with the pace of adaptation that any organism can have. Changing the composition of ecosystem, species interaction and invasive species. Like when there is the composition of ecosystem is changing, because there is always a dependence of plant to plant or plant to animal, like pollination. When the pollination need to happen, they depend on a particular butterflies or flies. So that flies, if they are not adapted to that particular environment, the pollination will not. And that will actually influence the survival of the particular crop. Shifting seasons and phenology, this is also a concern. So the seasons are shifting, and the flowering is happening at one time, and the coming of the butterflies is happening the other time. So that all will change their survival. So the classical example is that actually when you see that in a particular coffee, Robusta coffee, this particular Robusta coffee cannot be grown in this country. In Uganda, if you see that the particular Robusta coffee cannot be grown if the temperature goes beyond 2 degrees. So the whole economy of that country is disturbed. So now they have to see that after 100 years or by the end of this 2100, if this change happens, what next? What is the alternative? What adaptation strategies they should work out? So the particular economy, like economic contribution by this Robusta coffee, whether we can substitute with any other cash crop, or what are the other measures, are to go for the same coffee, where this Robusta coffee can be made as tolerant to this high temperature, or locations where you can see that this Robusta coffee can be grown. All these need to work out, because to strategies to be implemented by government, it requires a lot of budget and also the skills. So that sort of, because of many times, like if you are eating Sona Masuri rice, and I'll say that this Sona Masuri cannot be grown in our area, and some XYZ variety can be grown better under these changed conditions, but the consumer will not accept that. So either you have to develop a high temperature tolerant or low water required Sona Masuri varieties. To develop that, it requires at least 10 to 15 years. So that sort of policy decision and also the budgetary allocation require some time. So in this, they say that one should have an assessment how the things will be by at least by another 20 years or 30 years. So based on that, they made that how the crop yields are going to change. So they say that by 2080, majority of the areas are going to experience from 10% to 40% yield reduction in these countries. It is based on the increase in the temperature and their requirement of the water and the sensitivity of the crops they are growing. So when coming to the India, actually at CREDA, we have one AgriFarm, like All India Coordinated Research Project on Agrometeorology. They work on that weather conditions and they relate with the crop. So they said they have shown that there is an increasing trend in temperature, but there is certain areas they have shown that there is a decrease and there is no change. This is more than 50 years, based on the 50 years data, they have shown that. But one should understand that the temperature is again is controlled by the near to the water bodies and the elevation, and also the tree cover or the green cover. All these things will dictate your temperature. So that when we assessed this thing, then there is a change. There is a different, because based on this, then we have to work out the strategies how to cope up this increased temperature with the different cropping systems and the water requirement, like the construction of dams or rivers and other things. So when they have assessed the rainfall pattern, it is completely different, because it is not giving any trend when you do mean values of the all over India. But when you assess, this is also done by our Kirpam region, that they have shown that there is a decreasing trend in the central, and of course the rainfall is decreasing, because each area is having its own like rainfall, and that rainfall, if it is decreasing, then you can expect a droughts. So the moderate droughts, in the droughts also we have a moderate droughts and severe droughts also. Severe droughts, especially, you can see the frequency is increasing at the western areas, and moderate droughts in the eastern areas. Of course, in western areas, also in eastern areas, we can see that the drought probability of occurrence is increasing. So, and also we have seen that it was also observed that the rainfall pattern, like you all know that the June 12th was the opening of the schools, majority of the schools, because our monsoon is set in the second week, like June 10th. So thereby the temperatures will come down, so the children can actually attend the schools. But what happens, in the same way, our monsoon like Kharif crops will be sown during the June first week or second week. But what our actually studies shown that the rainfall pattern is changing. If you see the 60 to 90 and 90 to 2000, the rainfall is increasing in the June, July, August, but it is decreasing during the September, and while it is increasing in the October, that's in the Anantapur area. Because this particular season, month is basically for the pod filling and actually reproductive growth, that is hampered. So that's why, and when they have to harvest, that time they are getting higher rainfall. So this is actually happening over the past 10 years, 2019 to 2000. So they said that this need to change the cropping pattern or cropping sowing dates, so thereby they can actually escape. So similarly, they have worked out the water requirement based on the increase projections in the increase in the temperature. What is the water requirement for a wheat crop? They have worked for Haryana, and they have shown that in certain areas the increased temperature is actually demanding more water to raise the, and also there is a climatic shifts in the areas. So like humid to perhumid or semi-arid to arid. Like in Solapur, it is shifting to the, so based on that, again, you need to change your cropping system. So there is a, of course, there is one network project on climate change, and in that we have done studies that CMFRA, Cochin Marine Fisheries Institute, that the temperatures of the subsurface surface temperatures of oceans is increasing over a period of time, and it was also found that the oil sardine catch, because this is one of the actually important fish. So initially it was there in the west coast, but over a period they could find a better. It is a positive actually, I can say. And whereas it coming to the apple production, because of the yield in the Himachal Pradesh, especially the Himachal, it is decreasing, because what they have found that the chilling requirement for the bud burst of the apple is not happening in the lower altitudes. So that is causing the decrease in the apple yield at the lower. So based on these preliminary observations, the Indian government wanted a mega program that is in National Innovations in Climate Resilient Agriculture, a mega project was given to the Indian Council of Agriculture Research and CRIDA, Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture. Our institute was the nodal agency to implement this program. Actually, they want to assess the impact of climate change and also to work out the adaptive strategies in all the sectors of agriculture, including the dairying and also fisheries. So we have to evolve the climate resilient agriculture technologies because we have to sustain the production and productivity. Continuous management of natural and man-made resources also is one of the actually thrust areas given to this NICRA project. Actually, it has 4 modules: natural resource, crop production, livestock and fisheries, and also the enabling the support systems. Because it is not just by saying that you can plant this variety, you will get. No, it is not only the plant, the soil, water, and also the of course to sustain the income of a farmer, he should have a proper livestock and also the supporting system. Like the government has to support, like when there is a high temperature or high intense rainfalls and there is a loss of crop, the farmer need to have support system. In that, actually in crop production, integrated farming system, and also the resilient crops and crop cultivars need to be identified in this crop production module. And also the natural resource management, the soil health and carbon sequestration, rainwater harvesting and recycling, because the water available need to be conserved and used properly, and also in situ moisture conservation need to be actually they were addressed in this. In the livestock and fisheries, feed and fodder, health and shelter, and stress tolerant breeds. Anyway, you are going to actually face the high temperature. So the stress tolerant breeds also need to be identified and developed. If they are not there, we need to develop. Enabling supporting system, we actually came up with a custom hiring center where farmer can have the implements like if he has to go for immediate sowing or plowing, so he need not to have a bigger tractors. One need not to possess, and by hiring they can complete the operation. Seed and fodder bank, because we are promoting a new varieties or new crops, so the availability of seed and also for the animals, the fodder, and climate services and agro advisories. So the farmers need to be actually informed what will be the next, like long-term advisories or short-term, medium range advisories. Like within another 1 week, 10 days, if the rainfall is going to happen, so you can advise a farmer to go for the harvest or save the crop, or sowing for sowing he can take up. Like that, the agro advisories also plays a major role. And of course, village climate risk management committees, they are also formed under this module. Actually, before implementing any program, one should know what are the major actually climate vulnerable components in that. So based on the past data, they made the highly vulnerable, medium vulnerable, and very highly vulnerable districts. So based on that, the implementation of the programs, it is because some of the programs will be implemented by the center, some will be by the state. So we can suggest that these are the areas where the vulnerability is very high. So the budget, because budget is also major constraint to implement climate related these things, so actions. So then they can first implement it where the highly vulnerable districts are there. So in each state, how many districts are vulnerable, very highly vulnerable, and so in that way, agriculture, because for the agriculture, what are the actually districts we can address these things by 21 to 50. So where we can take up the measures, where you can introduce a new water body, or we can introduce a new crop cultivar, like that we can work out. So it was actually, there is a one component in the NICRA project is technology demonstration, TDC component, where initially we have taken up in 120 stations, addressing the drought and heat wave, drought and flood, like that. It is not the single climate variability, but there are, because that particular area is very vulnerable to that commodity. And to have a continuous weather information, 100 weather stations were established all across India to get the it was also observed that there is a, like in Mahbubnagar in Telangana, there is a, it is not only actually drought hit area, but the continuous persistent drought, because 1 year drought and 2 years proper rainfall may actually enable the farmer to cope up. But when there is a persistent drought for 12 years, it completely actually affects the farming community, especially the because I'm working with the rain-fed agriculture. Drought is completely affects the socio-economic condition of that. So the variability, increasing the variability. So it is high rainfall or low rainfall, and it is not actually not happening with a trend like a 1 year drought and 2 years or 3 years. So it is not happening. This is also need to be addressed by the local bodies and of course state government. So climate resilient village is another concept where we have weather information, village weather stations will be there, automatic weather stations and weather-based advisories, and documentation of aberrant weather, awareness building through extension, and real-time measures when there is a high dry spell. So what are the measures when there is a pest incidents or high pest incidents? What are the actually measures one has to take up that real time, on real-time basis? And water, aquifer recharge, for aquifer recharge, what are the structures need to be taken up, and groundwater recharge, and the in situ moisture conservation, farm ponds. These are all the measures we will take up for the particular crop commodity, fertilizer, carbon, institutional knowledge, how best they can have institutional setup to cope up with this climate change. And as I was saying, for drought, in situ conservation, and the farming, and what are the actually regions where the high drought like vulnerable to low moisture. So those things need to be check dams, pond, like this resilient practices for the rainwater. So in situ conservation. So by ridges and furrow, sowing across slopes, bed and furrow, like earthening up of cotton, like this we have different technologies demonstrated, and they have like floods and cyclones. When there is a flood and renovation of drainage channels, why it is happening, to first to take up that, and land configuration and planting techniques, like then go for the flood tolerant cultivars. If it is happening very frequent, go for the and post flooding management. Once floods comes, and then the sand and mud, so the prevention of, because it immediately triggers the diseases, and vaccination, and also the shelter management. So all these things we are, of course we have different infrastructure to actually monitor and also work out the impacts. This weather stations, all these things, satellite data set, and animal, all these things were established in this NICRA project. And of course, for the animal component also, tolerant genotypes were identified for wheat, rice, pigeon pea, tomato, and also livestock. These are the intercropping, sorry. So already the Swarna sub one, it was a success story, and flood tolerant paddy variety in these varieties, and they could see that how the local varieties were giving, and what is the percentage increase in the yield, and what is the benefit, and fodder production, like livestock based interventions will be fodder production, and also improved shelter management of breeds identifying, and also the silage making for off season availability of the feed. Dry months, how best we can actually make use of the available fodder during the lean periods. So that is also, so thereby you can actually have sustained yield production even during the lean seasons. So village risk management committees will be formed because they will from the local people. So thereby they can actually resolve their because problems which are having the local importance. So thereby they can identify the problems and they can actually take necessary actions to cope up with the this thing. So so the climate resilient agriculture, basically technologies, crop varieties, livestock breeds, and management practice, they were identified and implemented in the climate resilient agriculture. Improved preparedness for minimizing the impact of climate change variability through location specific, because it is not happening like now. You can see here that Tamil Nadu is having heavy downpour and lot of paddy areas are inundated. So these are location specific technologies need to be, and also policy options for promoting climate smart agriculture, particularly by, because the whatever the vagaries are there, majority of the damage will go to the small and marginal farmers, those who doesn't have that much coping mechanisms. So the climate change timeliness is action should be collective action, and also it should have an innovative way to address those issues. So coming to the agriculture, actually agriculture production depends on crop variety, temperature, water availability, and management. So this decides the the success of the any agriculture in a particular area. And because each crop has different temperature thresholds for each phenological stage, individual, like if it is happens only drought, the impact will be different. If it is having high temperature, that will be different. So at CREDA, we have different facilities to study the impact of future climatic conditions, like open top chambers. This is just to give a brief, because I want to familiarize with this sort of work what CREDA is doing. This facility basically to increase the carbon dioxide in the crop vicinity, where we can grow the crops in the open field, and also we can increase the carbon dioxide in this area. Thereby we can see the impact of carbon dioxide on the crop. And this is another facility, free air temperature elevation, where we can increase the temperature, and also we have the CO2, where we can increase the because the IR heaters are used and CO2 is pumped. It is like very costly experimentation, because in the open field you have to increase the temperature and increase the carbon dioxide. Thereby we can assess that whether the present cultivars can sustain in the future. So thereby it gives the accurate measurement of their impact. So these facilities were created, and these are the carbon dioxide and temperature gradient, where we can have a 30-meter length chambers were there. From one end to other end, we have +1 to +5 degrees. So even if +5 degrees increase is there, whether that particular variety will sustain or not, or which are the tolerant varieties, and what are the actually traits which are actually contributing to their tolerance. So to assess that, and initial studies they have shown that cereal crops have less actually adapted to increased carbon dioxide, whereas the pulse crops like dal, whatever the pappu dhanyal antam kada, avi ekkuva because of their symbiotic nitrogen fixation, they have shown higher actually improvement in this. And another very interesting thing what we observed, that phenology means the flowering time. So it is early with the CO2, and crop like castor, where the male and female flowers are there, it has become more of female flowers. The female flowers will turn into the capsules and give the yield. So this is very like positive thing with the castor. And when there is a dry condition, we always see that total spike becomes the male. So there is a huge yield loss will be there. But with the CO2, we have seen that it has become, and also the in pulse crops like pigeon pea, we have seen that there is a variation within the genotypes. With the CO2, it is actually increasing the seed yield. in some of the genotypes, whereas in some genotypes it is not that high. So the genotypes which are giving high yield can be sustained under future conditions. And in diagram also we have seen that all the some 18 genotypes we have tested, and they have shown that there is an increase, because we studied in summer when the temperature is going beyond 40 degrees, in winter when there is temperature is around 24-25. So during majority of the genotypes they have shown that reduced growth under high temperature and also yield. But when high CO2 is there, even during the summer also the genotypes were able to perform better. And another interesting point, we have seen that in groundnut, it is a oil seed and also a symbiotic nitrogen fixing legume crop. And the CO2 improved the seed yield and also the oil content. And another thing, what we have seen, oleic to linoleic acid. Oleic acid has increased. So in the similar way, when we have actually evaluated the maize crop, which is very sensitive to the high temperatures, there is a drastic reduction in the yield with the elevated temperature. This is decrease, what I'm saying, and the seed yield has gone down, and because with the CO2 the decrease was minimized. So this sort of observations we could see. And of course the pigeon pea, again the pulse crop, which is the major source of protein for the vegetarian people, this particular crop has shown that the high temperature is going to reduce it drastically, the yield, basically the yield and yield parameters. And with the because in the future we are expecting that CO2 is also going to be there. So when the CO2 increase is also there, it is actually completely nullifying the or completely significantly reducing the reduction due to the high temperature. And of course, in groundnut, as I was saying, that oleic to linoleic, this is good for the heart patients. The quality of the oil is improving with the CO2. So that we have observed. And also we have seen there is a genotypic variability within the groundnut crop. So when you have to choose the variety for the future, you should have the proper genotype with the good qualities. So that can be taken up when you are evaluating more genotypes. So coming to the end, climate change is a terrible threat. It is a threat, but there are options available, and we can work out for that. And if we say that yes, whatever is going to happen, it is not wise, and we have to act, and we have to search or explore the options, and thereby we can address the climate change. Thank you. Thank you very much.